Hello, my dear Franken friends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen. How horrible of you to join us. Curl up, invite your friends, and by all means, make sure those lights are out. That way it's harder to tell what may or may not be lurking around you. There's nothing like a good mystery, am I right? Tonight we'll feature a singular tale of devilish design, curated by those wicked weavers of woe. And without further ado, allow me to pass the reins on over to our vivacious voiceover virtuoso, Trey Falco, for tonight's sinister story. Please keep all limbs and side covers at all times. We wouldn't want anything to go missing now, would we?
I ran home, hardly stopping on the way even to catch my breath. I didn't encounter anyone on the streets, which was probably good because a horrified man, spattered with blood running down a city street at night, was a sure sight to arouse suspicion. The police would have been notified. But in my current state, I didn't stop to consider all of that. When I got to my apartment, I slammed the door behind me, gasping for air, my lungs aching, and slid down it to the floor, sitting there in shock for what felt like hours. I couldn't believe what I had just done. I had just murdered someone, something I had never envisioned myself being capable of doing. I felt numb, surreal, like I was in a dream, a nightmare I hoped to awaken from at any second. I didn't. After a while, I forced myself up and stumbled into the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror. My face and clothes were covered with streaks of blood that had already started to dry. My pale, blue eyes looked back at me, wide and vacant with shock. I wet a washcloth and wiped myself clean and then left the bathroom. I stood there looking around blankly, uncertain about what I should do next. The gravity of the situation struck me all at once, like a bullet, and I collapsed on my bed, weeping hysterically, suddenly overwhelmed with remorse and self-loathing. Anytime I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Dead eyes, wide in horror, mouth open, his expression almost pleading. His head, smashed open and misshapen by the pipe I had used to kill him. I really had gone insane, I realized. It had been a hallucination all along. The girl in the alley really must have experienced a heart attack or something, and the guy had been trying to help her, and had looked to me, the only person around, to call for help. Instead, I experienced a psychotic episode, had imagined him attacking me and acted out on my own paranoid delusions, bashing his brains out in that dark alleyway. My new life, which I had just been starting to enjoy, was over. I thought about turning myself into the police, even briefly considered suicide out of guilt, when something else dawned on me that floored me with a fresh wave of panic. In my shock, I had left the murder weapon, the pipe I had used, right there in the alleyway for the police to find when they discovered the bodies. The pipe that would have my fingerprints on it. I didn't have to turn myself in. Eventually, the police would come to me themselves, would arrest me. They'd charge me with the murder of the young man, and probably the girl as well. I'd spend The rest of my lousy life in prison, or some psychiatric hospital at best, if I told them what had really happened. What I had thought had happened, anyway. I never felt as low as I did that night, even during the bleakest times I had spent blind and homeless. I wished I was dead, that I had never had that surgery and regained my sight. I would have preferred dying on the streets of starvation compared to this hell I found myself living in now. I got drunk and passed out. I awoke the next morning severely hungover. The events of the night before seemed unreal. I tried to tell myself it had just been a bad dream, that nothing had really happened. But then, when I sat down to drink some coffee and turned on the TV, this brief, pleasant moment of denial came crashing down. The news was on. A picture of the man I had murdered was on the screen. The newscaster explained that the body of the 26-year-old playboy son of a prominent lawyer had been found on the other side of the city, beaten to death in an alley in an apparent mugging gone wrong. The body of a 17-year-old known prostitute and drug addict had been found nearby as well, but she appeared to have died of natural causes, and police didn't believe the two deaths were connected. Police theorized that the man's murder might have actually been a revenge killing, and noted that he had a rather unsavory reputation for his swinging bachelor lifestyle, and was rumored to have several debts to big-time drug dealers. Police were investigating the murder. My cup of coffee dropped from my hand, splashing upon the table. With numb fingers, I turned off the TV. It was all over. Everything was over. I tried to decide what to do next. I knew it was only a matter of time before the police identified me by the fingerprints I had left on the pipe and came for me. I had to leave. Just pack up my things and leave the city. Abandon my life, my job and new friends, and go somewhere else far away. I called in sick at the supermarket, explaining to my manager that I had caught the flu bug going around. He wasn't particularly sympathetic, still annoyed over the several days of work I had already missed due to the headaches I had experienced during the last month. Then I packed my duffel bag and headed for my door. I stopped when I spotted what was on the floor below it. A folded sheet of white paper someone had slipped beneath it the night before. I sat down my bag, picked up the sheet of paper, and unfolded it.
Who are you? You're not allowed to... Barnabas? Something. It's in the booth. Oh God, Barnabas. Barnabas, help me. Barnabas, please, it's coming closer. Barnabas!
So sorry you had to hear that, dear listener. While our cleaning crew tackles the remains of that recording booth and our engineers try to resolve any lingering technical issues, let me tell you about one of our fine sponsors, Huxley's Cloning Facility. Let me ask you, listener, are there times in which you wish you had an extra set of hands that you could be in two places at once? Well, with a simple and somewhat painful process of DNA extraction, that wish could finally come true. Huxley sports state-of-the-art cloning facilities that are just outside of FDA-approved standards. What does this mean for you? Better, faster, more compliant super clones. Why go to those other guys when you could come by Huxley's? I mean, we're here right now, brewing up another fine narrator. Gestation period is only 2 hours. Hurry and get your clone today before it's too late. Oh, what? Oh, cut that part out. Oh, sorry. Huxley's, because our you is better in every way. Now that our announcer is back in the booth and has finally achieved a normal sense of motor control, back to your story.
A message had been written in block letters and black marker. I read it in disbelief. and then read it again. I saw what you did. You're not crazy. I can see them too. Meet me tonight at 9 in the park, west side. Below that, in smaller writing, P.S. Don't worry about the pipe. I got rid of it for you. I left my apartment at 8:30 that evening and made my way to the park, which was only about 6 blocks away. It was a chilly fall night. Indian summer had disappeared overnight, and I was glad I had decided to wear a jacket. I was extremely nervous. No, more than that. I was scared shitless, but also intrigued. I felt a great deal of apprehension about going to this clandestine nighttime meeting with the mystery person who had left me that message. I wondered if it could be a setup. Maybe the rest of those things I had seen had identified me somehow and were planning to kill me to avenge their slain comrade. Or maybe it was a police ambush. Except whoever had written the note knew that I was seeing things, knowledge the police had no way of coming by. Either way, I had to go. I couldn't pass this opportunity up. I had some burning questions I wanted answers, and if there was anyone who knew what the hell was going on, what I had gotten myself involved in, it was this person, whoever they were. I entered the main park gate and strolled down one of the paths. The park was deserted this time of night. It was dead silent except for the distant sounds of an occasional car passing by on the streets and the infrequent wail of a police siren. It was a moonless night, and the park was pitch black except for the light from the lamppost that dotted the path every 100 feet or so. I walked, heading for the west side, feeling uneasy, scanning the darkness around me for any sign of movement, or a pair of red, glowing eyes. Up ahead, I spotted someone sitting on a bench. Coincidentally, the same one where I myself had sometimes sat to enjoy the sunset, near one of the lampposts, its yellow halo of light casting a shadow upon him or her, so that all I could see was an indistinct silhouette. They were motionless, just sitting there, seemingly waiting for someone. I stopped and just stood there for a few moments, appraising the figure. Whoever they were, their eyes weren't glowing red, which I took to be a good sign. I swallowed, summoning my courage, and approached. As I drew nearer, I saw it was a young guy wearing a dark windbreaker and jeans. He looked to be around 22 or so, and was pale with short black hair and glasses. He was thin and gangly and looked like every awkward social outcast in every high school movie you ever saw. The kind of guy who had probably been on first-name terms with all the jock assholes who had shoved his face into a toilet on a regular basis after 10 of them had used it and hadn't flushed. I stopped again about 10 paces away, watching his face for a few seconds. It didn't ripple or distort. He looked back at me casually, almost blandly, his face expressionless. Except for his eyes, which bore the hollow, haunted look of a shell-shocked veteran. I went up to him and spoke, getting straight to business, not wasting time on small talk. Alright, who the fuck are you and what do you know? He gestured for me to sit next to him. I did. My name's Jeremy, he told me. I didn't ask for your fucking name, just tell me what's going on, I said testily. I admit, I was pretty on edge, wound tight. Look, he snapped at me. Do you want to hear what I have to say or not? If you do, shut the fuck up and listen. I was a little taken aback by his sudden aggressiveness, so I shut the fuck up and listened. He studied my face for a moment. You had a brain injury, didn't you? The optical lobe, right? I was shocked. How the fuck do you know that? Because the same thing happened to me. How did you find me? I asked him. I was following you last night. The whole time you were following that thing. You were? I said, surprised. It had never occurred to me that while I had been stalking that shadow-faced creature from across the city, someone had also been stalking me. I had never had even the vaguest suspicion. Yep, I stayed pretty far back so you wouldn't detect me. The same thing you were doing to it. He seemed amused by this. Why were you following me? Actually, I started off following that thing, then you came along. I thought at first you were planning to rob him. It. I figured I should see what you were up to, just in case it might be worth my while. I guess it was. How do you know where I lived? I followed you back, afterwards, he said, as if it should have been self-evident. I was going to knock on your door after you got back, but I figured you might be pretty shook up by what happened and needed some time to calm down. So you saw me kill it? Yes. I was actually planning on taking it out myself, but you beat me to it. I was startled. You were gonna kill it? Yeah. It wouldn't have been the first time. I felt my skin crawl with his casual admittance. How many? I asked him. Jeremy shrugged. I don't know, maybe 20? I kinda lost count after a while. That's the reason there are not as many of them in this city as there are in others. Jesus Christ, I said, appalled, looking at him with horror. I thought I was crazy, but this dude was a full-fledged psychopath. I was sitting here in this deserted city park in the middle of the night, next to a serial killer. He reacted to my judgmental stare, becoming offended and defensive. Hey, don't look at me like that. It has to be done. You seemed to think so yourself last night. That was different, I protested. I just wanted to see what it was up to. That thing attacked me. Self-defense. You're talking about cold-blooded murder. He laughed scornfully. Bullshit. Those things aren't human. You saw it. You saw what it did to that girl. I stared at him. What the hell are they? Jeremy shook his head. I don't know. I wish to God I did. Maybe they're demons or some kind of vampires. Honestly, I don't know much more than you do. I think they might have been human at some point, but then they got taken over or possessed or who the fuck knows. What was that thing doing to that girl? I asked him. Couldn't you see for yourself? I saw it, but I don't know what I was seeing. It was draining her life force out, he explained. He paused. Or maybe... Maybe what? I demanded. Jeremy looked at me, troubled and frightened. Or maybe it was sucking out her soul.
Welcome back, my darling deviants. Well, tell me, did you enjoy that twisted tale? Of course you did. I knew you had that air about you, that hunger for the horrific and the macabre. So, did we spook you? If not, then file a complaint with our complaint department detailing all accounts of non-spookiness you found in this video, and we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 millennia. Give or take a business eon or two. However, if you've enjoyed what you've just heard this evening, then make sure you leave a like on this video and annihilate that subscribe button. Such a small act of obedience is exactly what we need to put the food on the table around here. There's only so many days we can have refried kidney and toe jam hash before I'm absolutely sick of it. Spoiler alert, that ship sailed long ago. Now, I must bid you adieu. I've many things to take care of, and this outro is eating into my day off. Run along now. Have no fear, we'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you another terrible tale. Go forth, my ghastly gang, and stay spooky.